We talk about decentralization a lot, right? And now with blockchain technology, it's kind of expanded quite a bit in the last couple of years development-wise. So now there seems to be like a spectrum of different kind of applications and chains that you can have, from like a decentralized chain that nobody controls to private chains that have some aspects of control to where you can kind of control some of that data and the motion of that. So what do you think? What do you guys think about the spectrum of decentralization here?
So it's interesting, as a homework assignment for each of you, because that's what you all want right now, go Google Satoshi Nakamoto, who's the founder of Bitcoin, and there's a white paper, and it's only like 8 or 10 pages long. And for a technical paper, it's actually pretty easy to read, even if you're a layman. But it talks about the double spend problem that's in there. And what all that is about, back to the centralization versus decentralization, is Bitcoin was really more of a libertarian philosophy, kind of the Ron Paul crowd of, hey, in the Fed, we don't want fiat, we want power back to the people. So it was a political ideology that drove this technological change. And so it's less about, Ben Bernanke, Janet Yellen, Mario Draghi, and central bank control, and it's more about the whole crowd controls money, right? And so there's a spectrum and a debate now, because the people that are in power, whether it's for good intentions or bad, they realize, just like LIBOR, controlling interest rates. There was a LIBOR scandal. We trusted that group, but that was still a challenge, right? And it was corruptible. So from public, fully public, where everybody controls the blockchain, to private, where there's still kind of a tendency to control, there's this spectrum. I'm much more of a public decentralized, but I also recognize the human tendency to need and want something that's more central and approved, especially if there's individual personal data that's traded on a blockchain. So that's kind of my view on it, just kind of outlining that spectrum.
To add on to what Bobby said, the spectrum of decentralization is an interesting question. And frankly, it's almost like a religious and tribal thing. If you go on Twitter, crypto Twitter, anyone here frequent crypto Twitter? It's a very interesting place to see how people feel about this stuff, and it's very passionate. And like Bobby said, this movement, this industry was actually born off of, frankly, what happened in 2008. I mean, I was 18 during the financial crisis. We saw what happened, or what the state of our financial system at that time was. And after I found out about Bitcoin, to be able to send money to my family in the Caribbean instantly, without any fees, using Western Union and PayPal, was a really revolutionary thing. And what's fascinating is, as the industry has grown, certain blockchains, like Bitcoin, for example, is generally slow and steady. It's very slow in terms of the development. It's more of the Boeing aircraft that you don't want to crash, right? Whereas you've got something like Ethereum, where it's like move fast and break things. So you've got different philosophies with these different blockchains, and all within the spectrum of decentralization, where Ethereum has something like 10,000 nodes or 30,000 nodes or something like that, where EOS has 21 nodes, right? Which would be heretical for someone who is, go on crypto Twitter, you'll see. It's a very, and that's part of the spectrum of decentralization. But that's not to say that something like EOS can't be useful for some applications, and Ethereum can be useful for some other applications, right? So it really depends on what the goals of what you're trying to build are in one of these blockchains.